For years now, whenever I've needed to put some pressure on my books, I've grabbed a stack of heavy files and plonked them on top. It's time for me to upgrade my kit and build myself my own book press. There are only a few materials we need for this activity. The first is some plywood, about 14mm I found was the right size, cut to about A4 sheet of paper size. We also need 4 doorstops, a G-clamp which will act as the pressing plate itself, 1 or 2 short metal screws to clamp the clamp to the base of the wood, and finally, it's optional, you can also use some super glue. There are 3 key dimensions to keep in mind. The first one is the size of the base of the foot from top to bottom, and what we need is that to be larger than the largest dimension on the base of the clamp. So for me that was here, and that is slightly bigger, so that will slot under nicely. The second, and you have a little bit of flexibility with this if you need to, is the size of your board compared to the size of the screw that will be sticking through. So for this one, my 7mm plywood was slightly too thin, so what I've done is I've glued those two together. Now you could potentially have switched it out for a smaller screw, but I think having the stronger base will be more helpful with the pressing down from the books and the clamps. So being 7mm, these are probably slightly too thin for what we need. So I'm just going to glue these two pieces together. So I'll just start with putting a bead of just PVA wood glue along the surface, then just use my finger to smooth it all out. Now it will squeeze once I clamp the two pieces of wood together. I just want to try and make sure there's a relatively even coating across the surface. So then we just stick some clamps on, just to help that glue grab. So let that sit for a few hours. While the glue is drying, we will use a drill to drill out the rivet on the back of the clamp in order to remove the sliding piece completely. This will just help with installing it later. With the glue dry, we will draw some lines from corner to corner to ensure that everything is evenly spaced when we do the drilling. So using the rubber stoppers as a guide, I measured out some rough spacing and drew on equally on each of the 4 corners. I then put down the clamp roughly where I expected it to be and traced out where I needed to drill a hole in order to have the length of the clamp come through. With the drill bit about 1/3 of the size of the screws, I then drilled through each of the 4 corners, the entire way through the plywood. You can use a screwdriver, but I found it much simpler to use a tech head and just drill the doorstops into the base. Do that for all 4 corners. Now this bit was a bit trickier. I got a drill bit about the size of the clamp, and then I drilled holes through the stencil I had previously drawn. I drilled holes the entire length up to try and remove as much material as possible. Now afterwards you could use a file or potentially a handsaw to cut through. I was a bit lazy and I just tried to use the drill bit itself to slowly erode away the material until it all slotted through nicely. Test fitting with the clamp, I found a few spots that were still stuck before I managed to squeeze it through. With the clamp embedded, I then wanted to stick through a little screw just to make sure it all held through tightly. So using a metal bit, drill a small hole through the clamp, and then with a small metal Tek screw, we'll clamp that one down. Now if you wanted to use the super glue, you could do it right here underneath the clamp. And there we have it. My first homemade book press. This one works quite simply. The sliding portion just comes down, and you can use a piece of flat wood to clamp on top of the book. I've chosen to use a piece of clear perspex, partly to show you wonderful people what I'm doing, but also so I can clearly see if things have been folded up, so I don't accidentally embed folds further into things I'm clamping. Well, I hope this has been helpful. I'll see you at the next one.